I want to take my drill. I have it in my hearth and I place it, I don't want to have it too close, but about that far away. And I just want to have it about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the hearth. So from this distance here to the edge of the hearth is about 1/8 of an inch. I'm setting this here. This distance here to the edge of the hearth is about 1/8 of an inch. I find that a lot of people do much larger distances than that, and that does keep it from cracking out. Sometimes this thin edge sometimes snaps out and it pops off, especially if you can see the straight grain of the wood is running this way. So it does like to split like that, but that's what gives it a good combination of different woods. So I like to have this configuration, and it sometimes does split out, but it's way easier to have it split out sometimes than to have to cut a really, really deep notch. So I like to keep my notches pretty close, not too close to the edge, because then it always splits out, but about 1/8 of an inch is a good amount. And I went around with the knife and I made a whole bunch of little notches or little dents. And especially, this is the grain of the wood running this direction. So I especially want to do dents on this side of the grain and on this side of the grain. So I'm cutting through all the grain of the wood because I'm going to pop this little bit of wood out. And this is going to give me my divot or my starting point. So see, I pointed in here. If you didn't have a steel knife, you could just take a rough piece of stone and just turn it and make enough of a depression that the drill would spin in place. But if you have a steel knife, this is a way to really seat the drill in place. Do you see that? So then you can get up on your knees again. And right now I don't have to really hold this in place so much, just for seating. It's really nicely laid on the ground right now. So as long as your heart's not moving, you can just do this too. And I'm taking a couple passes, getting my hands wet, taking a couple of passes until I can really see the smoke happening. I don't go more than, I try to go halfway, maybe 3/4, but I don't go all the way to the bottom. And when we see that smoke happening, then we know that our drill is now seated. And you can see it's getting hot. It's even trying to, there's a lot of friction going on there. And I have a hot center point. And do you see the powder and the circle around it? That's showing me that the powder is getting formed, but it's not being focused. That's what the notch does, is takes all this powder and puts it in one place. So we knock off that powder, and now I have to make my notch. Come in like this. I gotta make sure that my notch is not wider than the hole that I just made, but as wide as possible is good. Not too narrow is also problematic. So I take the first corner, and I'm not cutting towards myself. I have my thumb here, and I'm sliding my knife, and then I'm sliding my knife like that. And then I come down, and I like to take my knife and make a little line, and make a little line. And then I can come in here and cut this corner away. But see, I don't want to go too deep, so I don't want to split it out. So then I turn it around and I come back this way. And I just keep going back and forth till I can see that I'm cutting the two corners away. Because once I've removed the two corners, then it's really easy to come in and slice this part away. I can either hold it in my hand or I can put it on the ground. You could do all this on the ground if you're nervous about the hand motion that I was doing. And you want to cut with a sliding motion. And that's how when I'm coming in to clean this up, I come in like this and I slide and I slide, and slide. And I'm curling my hand and I'm sliding, because that's what a knife cuts, is when it's sliding. If you're just pushing a knife, it won't cut. The slide is what actually makes the cut happen. And now I want to go about 1/3 to 1/2 into the center of this black hole that I've created, because it has to be able to focus the powder. And I want to try to make this notch really clean. And I also don't want to make my notch a V shape. I really prefer to make it a U shape. So see, I'm coming in and really cutting straight in and then rolling it down so that I can see that I'm creating a nice U. And then I can come in and clean this bottom part up so that it's even. So, clean the center up now. I want this to be very perpendicular. I want this opening to be very clean, not have any wood in it that will catch and disperse the powder, because the powder comes out of the notch in a really, really good state for ignition. And then I can put my piece of wood under here, as long as my piece of wood is not causing it to rock in any kind of fashion. I want it to be nice and level, right? So I don't want it to be rocking back and forth on this. So we are going to make a hand drill fire today with this drill is made out of mare's tail. It's a little bit on the thin side. Never any thinner than this, but a little bit bigger is sometimes preferable. The hearth is made out of incense cedar. This is the hearth. This is the drill. There's already been a hole cut in it. So first I'm just going to show you how I make a fire in a hole that has already made a fire before. I need to stabilize the hearth and make sure it's super stable. You can have somebody hold the hearth for you, and if you're doing that, then you can be on both knees like this, making this happen, and leaning over, and this is a really good form. You can have somebody holding it opposite you, and if you're working with a partner or with 4 people, you'd have one person here on their knees, one person there, one person here, and then you could be passing in a circle. But if you're doing it by yourself, you have to sometimes bring your foot forward. And then you have this problem of working around your knee, which is why having somebody hold it for you can be helpful when you're first learning. But right now I'll show you single style. But I really do suggest that people do it with a partner standing opposite them, holding the hearth for them, because then you don't have to worry about your knee. So getting your hands a little bit wet, licking your hands or getting some water in your hands is a good idea. And then you're pushing down with a lot of speed and a lot of downward pressure. You only go about halfway down the drill, and then you hold it and you come back to the top, and then you push down again, and you're spinning and you're pushing your body down, but you're keeping your upper body relaxed so that you can really work into it. And now you're seeing the powder form, and I can see that that smoke's coming. The powder's a little bit light, so I can say that I'll try to go a little bit harder. But I believe we just saw the ember form. I can see, I'm gonna do one more pass to be sure, but we can see that the smoke is now coming from that little pile of powder. You can just take a stick, and you don't want to pull the hearth away because you're a little shaky, but also it's stuck in the notch there. And so if I put a little stick in there and just easily slide the hearth away, then I can see my nice ember forming there. That's the notch. And the ember, the heat was happening here. The powder built up to the point where it contacted the heat being created by the friction, and it ignited this little pile of powder. And this will burn for several minutes. It's getting stronger. It's getting what I call more lumpiform. I've got my tinder bundle here. And you can have this prepared beforehand, but I do have enough time. So I put some of these are dead, dry mugwort leaves. I like to put a small handful of mugwort leaves in the center of my grass bundle, which I twisted this grass bundle up when it was more damp, and now it's dried in form. I take some of my cattail down. And I buff it up because you don't want it to be too poofy. Do you see how I sort of felt it? If I tried to put it like this, the ember would get lost in there. So then I put this here. And then I can take some of my mugwort leaves and I buff them up really strongly between my hands. And now I've got this really nice cottony. This is the best stuff for extending the coal. It's like an incense. So this layer will extend the coal and get it to where it's strong enough to ignite this tinder bundle. So I can take this coal up now, and I have it on a board or a little piece of wood or a leaf, as long as it's not so thick that it makes your hearth rock back and forth, is fine. And then I can just slide that little ember right into my tinder bundle. It was starting to burn the wood a little bit. Make sure this is not burning. And then I can use a stick or something to really tuck my ember down in the tinder bundle. I want to make sure my tinder bundle is not, so I don't want it sitting on top. I want it to be sort of like a taco, so I can have enough airflow. The thing that will make the fire happen now is a combination of airflow, which I'll do by blowing on it, and fuel, which I'll do by squeezing my hands together. So see, I'm just holding it with my fingertips, not with my whole hand like that, because then there's no risk I'm going to get burned. And I can also control So I'm giving it airflow, but now I'm compressing more. There's two steps for fire making. Number one is making the coal happen. And number two is actually igniting it into flame. So now we have our actual bundle burning, and this is when you would have, if you were keeping this fire alive, you would have small sticks and small kindling, and you would be putting it on. I'm stirring it to create the air because we need the air. Fire is a chain reaction, so we have our fuel in the presence of enough oxygen. We've ignited it with our heat source by rubbing the two sticks together, and then we have created ignition, and then we continue the chain reaction of fire by adding fuel and making sure it has adequate oxygen. Give thanks to your fire. Say thank you. High five each other. You did awesome on that. That was an all-student fire with no adult help. That was awesome.
That was really you guys. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And that was the teamwork. Shows the teamwork.
Super good teamwork. You all worked really, really hard.
1, 2, get that heat. Oh, I didn't jam.
So, do you guys want to say anything about your fire? Was that hard?
Oh, it's really angry at me. But it's worth it. It's really worth it.
But we still could add small sticks if we wanted to. I'm going to let this one burn out because we're not building it up. But we would add small sticks, and then you would add larger sticks, because fire is a chain reaction, and it will burn something in relation to how much energy it has in it. And since this was just a small tinder bundle, it was just getting started, it would need small fuel. And then we would be adding bigger fuel, and then we would build the fire up. It is starting to go out, not because it is running out of air. It's got adequate air, but it is running out of fuel.